The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was the size of a small moon, built from metals that glowed with a strange blue light. Inside its walls, the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered for an emergency meeting. They called themselves the Galactic Council. Admiral Kang Daiho stood in his small office aboard the Earth Defense Ship Defender. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. His uniform was simple compared to the fancy clothes worn by other species in the galaxy. He stared at the message that had just arrived on his screen. The words made his blood run cold. To the primitive species known as humans, the message began, "You have 7 standard days to leave your homeworld. Earth will be taken by the Galactic Council for security reasons. If you refuse, your entire species will be destroyed." Kang Daiho read it 3 times. Each time his anger grew stronger. For 300 years, humanity had lived in peace in their small corner of space. They traded with other species when they could. They never started wars. They never threatened anyone. Yet here was this message, treating them like insects to be swept away. The Admiral touched a button on his desk. A hologram appeared showing the face of Dr. Park Mira. She was the smartest person he knew, working as the head of Earth's science division. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple style, and her eyes were sharp with intelligence. "Did you get the message too?" Kang Daiho asked. "Yes," Dr. Park Mira said. Her voice was calm, but he could see worry in her face. "I've been expecting this for years. The aliens think we're weak. They think we can't fight back. Can we?" the Admiral asked. "They say they have 50,000 ships coming our way. We barely have 500. Dr. Park Mira was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a person made when they knew a secret that others didn't. "Admiral, I need to speak with you and Commander Lee Jinho. In person, right away." An hour later, the 3 of them sat in a secure room deep inside Earth's main space station. Commander Lee Jinho was younger than the other 2, with short black hair and quick movements. He was in charge of Earth's special forces, though most people didn't know what made them so special. "Tell me," Dr. Park Mira said, looking at both men. "What do you know about the Shadowgate project?" Kang Daiho frowned. "I've heard whispers, something the science division has been working on for decades, but it's classified above my level." "Mine too," Lee Jinho added, "though my soldiers sometimes joke about the big secret that will save us all." Dr. Park Mira stood up and walked to a wall panel. She pressed her hand against it and the lights in the room dimmed. A holographic display filled the air between them, showing Earth and the space around it. "For 200 years, she began, humanity has been pretending to be weak. We let other species think we're stuck in our solar system because we can't build good enough ships. We let them think our weapons are primitive. We let them think we're no threat to anyone." The hologram changed, showing strange energy patterns around Earth that looked like cracks in space itself. "The truth is, we've been building something that required us to look harmless while we worked. We needed time, and the only way to get time was to make sure no one saw us as a threat." Kang Daiho leaned forward. "What kind of something?" "Gates," Dr. Park Mira said simply. "Not gates to other places in our universe. Gates to other universes entirely. Places where humanity exists but evolved differently." Lee Jinho's eyes went wide. "You're talking about other dimensions?" "Exactly. In some of these dimensions, humans became great warriors. In others, they learned to control time itself. In still others, they found ways to make their bodies and minds stronger than any alien species." The hologram showed flashes of different worlds. On one, massive human ships that looked like living creatures flew through space. On another, human soldiers moved so fast they seemed to disappear and reappear. On a third, cities floated in the air while humans with glowing eyes worked on machines that bent space around them. "We've made contact with 12 different dimensions where humans exist," Dr. Park Mira continued, "and we've made a deal with all of them. If any version of humanity is threatened with extinction, the others will come to help." Kang Daiho felt his mouth go dry. "How many ships are we talking about?" "From all dimensions combined? About 200,000. All hidden in space that exists between our reality and theirs. Waiting." Lee Jinho stood up suddenly. "Why are you telling us this now?" Dr. Park Mira's expression became serious. "Because President Kim Hye-jin is meeting with the Earth Leadership Council right now. They're deciding whether to activate the Shadowgate protocol, whether to reveal what humanity really is." At that moment, an alarm began to sound throughout the station. A voice came over the intercom system. All senior staff report to the main briefing room immediately. Priority Alpha alert. The three of them hurried through the corridors of the station. Other officers and scientists were moving quickly, their faces showing confusion and worry. No one had heard a Priority Alpha alert in over 50 years. In the briefing room, President Kim Hye-jin stood at the front. She was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and a strong voice that commanded attention. Around her sat the 12 members of the Earth Leadership Council, along with the top military and science leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, President Kim Hye-jin began, we have received an ultimatum from the Galactic Council. They demand we surrender Earth in 7 days or they will destroy our entire species. Worried voices filled the room. Some people shouted questions. Others argued about what to do. President Kim Hye-jin raised her hand for silence. For over 2 centuries, she continued, humanity has prepared for this day. We knew that eventually, our peaceful nature would be seen as weakness. We knew that someone would try to take what is ours. She turned to Dr. Park Mira. Doctor, please explain the Shadow Gate project to everyone. For the next 30 minutes, Dr. Park Mira told the assembled leaders about the hidden truth of humanity's last 200 years. She showed them images of the other dimensions. She explained how the gates worked. She revealed the secret fleet that waited in the spaces between realities. When she finished, the room was completely silent. General Oh Ji-hoon, the head of Earth's military, spoke first. You're saying we've been living a lie for 2 centuries? Not a lie, Dr. Park Mira replied. A strategy. We needed time to build these alliances. We needed to develop the technology. And we needed our enemies to underestimate us completely. Admiral Kang Dae-ho asked, what happens if we activate this protocol? President Kim Hye-jin answered, the galaxy will learn that they didn't threaten one small planet full of weak humans. They threatened humanity itself, all of it, across every dimension where we exist. The debate that followed was intense but brief. Some leaders worried about revealing their secret too early. Others argued that waiting might mean the aliens would bring even more ships. In the end, the vote was unanimous. President Kim Hye-jin stood up and looked around the room. Dr. Park Mira, begin the activation sequence for the Shadow Gate protocol. Commander Lee Jin-ho, prepare all dimensional defense forces. Admiral Kang Dae-ho, send a message to the Galactic Council. What should the message say? The Admiral asked. President Kim Hye-jin's eyes became hard as steel. Tell them that humanity thanks them for their ultimatum. Tell them that in 7 days they'll get their answer. And tell them that they might want to bring more ships. As the meeting ended and people hurried to their tasks, Dr. Park Mira walked to a special console that had been hidden behind a false wall. She placed both hands on it and spoke clearly. This is Dr. Park Mira, Chief Science Officer of Earth Primary. Authorization code, Shadow 77 Alpha. Begin Shadow Gate activation sequence. Deep in space around Earth, things that had been invisible for 200 years began to wake up. In 12 different dimensions, alarms sounded on human ships that had been waiting for this moment. The greatest secret in the history of humanity was about to be revealed, and the galaxy would never be the same. Dr. Yoon Seokman was 93 years old, but his mind was still sharp as a knife. He sat in his wheelchair in the archives deep below Earth's surface, surrounded by files and records that told the true story of humanity's last 200 years. As the Shadow Gate protocol began to activate, he remembered the day it all started. It was the year 2187. Back then, Yoon Seokman had been a young scientist working on humanity's first real faster-than-light drive. The project was called Prometheus, and it was supposed to open the stars to human exploration. Instead, it opened something much bigger. Captain Nam Yoonji had been the pilot chosen for the first test flight. She was brave, smart, and the best pilot Earth had ever produced. The plan was simple. Jump to the nearest star system, take some pictures, and come home. It should have taken 3 hours. Instead, Captain Nam Yoonji and her ship disappeared for 6 months. When the ship finally returned, it was different. The metal hull had strange markings that seemed to move when no one was looking directly at them. The engines hummed with power that their instruments couldn't measure. And Captain Nam Yoonji had a story that changed everything. I didn't go to another star, she had told the gathered scientists and military leaders. I went to another reality, a place where Earth exists, but everything happened differently. She had shown them recordings from her ship's cameras. They saw an Earth where massive cities floated in the clouds. They saw humans who could fly without machines. They saw ships that were grown instead of built, like living creatures made of metal and energy. The humans there called themselves the Skywalkers, Captain Nam Yunji had explained. They evolved differently than us. When their planet became polluted, they didn't clean it up. They learned to live above it. They've been waiting for other versions of humanity to find them. Dr. Yoon Seokman had spent the next 5 years trying to understand how it was possible. The answer had come from studying the strange markings on Captain Nam Yunji's ship. They weren't just decorations. They were a map, a guide to finding other realities where humans existed. The second expedition had been led by Commander Choi Tae-young. He was a military man who believed in being prepared for anything. His ship had found a dimension where Earth had been attacked by aliens 1,000 years ago. The humans there had fought back and won, but the war had changed them. They became the greatest warriors in their galaxy. They called themselves the Iron Wolves. Commander Choi Tae-young had reported, "Every human child learns to fight before they learn to read. Their ships are weapons. Their cities are fortresses. And they've been alone for so long that they cried when they realized other humans existed." One by one, over the next 50 years, human explorers found more dimensions. Each one told a different story of how humanity had survived and grown. There was the dimension where Earth had been hit by a plague that killed most animals and plants. The humans there had learned to change their own bodies, becoming something between human and machine. They called themselves the Evolved. There was the dimension where humans had discovered how to control time itself. They could speed it up, slow it down, or even move backward through it. They called themselves the Eternal. There was the dimension where humans had learned to exist in multiple places at once, spreading their consciousness across space like a living network. They called themselves the Connected. Each dimension had faced different challenges. Each had found different solutions, but they were all still human at heart. Dr. Park Mira walked into the archives, pulling Dr. Yoon Seokman from his memories. She was carrying a datapad and looked excited but nervous. "The activation is going well," she reported. "All 12 dimensions are responding. But I wanted to check the historical records one more time." "Are you sure this will work?" Dr. Yoon Seokman smiled. "My dear, I've been working on this for over a century. Each dimension we found, we offered the same deal. Help us if we're threatened, and we'll help them if they're threatened. No dimension has ever been attacked because no one knew they existed. This will be the first real test. What if they refuse to help?" Dr. Park Mira asked. "They won't," the old scientist said with confidence. "You have to understand something about all these different versions of humanity. No matter how they evolved, no matter what they became, they all share one thing. They all remember what it was like to be alone in a hostile universe. They'll help because we're family." On the surface, Admiral Kang Dae-ho was getting reports from his scout ships. The alien fleet was already on its way to Earth. 50,000 ships, just like the message had said. Maybe more. The ships came from many different species. The Vorthak Empire sent their massive battle cruisers, each one the size of a city. The Zephyrite Collective contributed their crystal ships that could fire energy beams hot enough to melt planets. Dozens of smaller species added their own vessels to the fleet. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Song Minji from the communications station, "we're getting messages from the alien fleet. They're demanding to know why we haven't started evacuating Earth yet." Admiral Kang Dae-ho looked at the display showing the approaching enemy fleet. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Any other species would have surrendered immediately. "Send them a reply," he ordered. "Tell them we're preparing our response. Tell them they'll have their answer in 6 days." What the aliens didn't know was that around Earth, space itself was beginning to change. The shadow gates were charging up, drawing power from the planet's core and from massive generators hidden on the moon and throughout the solar system. Commander Lee Jin-ho stood in the secret command center that had been built inside an asteroid. For 200 years, this place had been Earth's most closely guarded secret. Now it buzzed with activity as technicians prepared for the most important moment in human history. "Status report," he called out. "Gate 1 is at 60% power," reported Technician Bae So-young. "Connection to Dimension Alpha 7 is stable." "Gate 2 is at 55%, called another technician. "The Iron Wolves are ready to deploy." "Gate 3 is charging slower than expected," reported a third. "The Eternal are having to synchronize their timeline with ours." One by one, the reports came in. 12 gates, 12 dimensions, 12 different versions of humanity, all preparing to reveal themselves to a galaxy that had no idea what was coming. In Dimension Alpha 7, Admiral Han Jiho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood Moon. His ship was alive, grown from a combination of human DNA and alien biotechnology, captured in wars long ago. The walls pulsed with a heartbeat. The weapon systems were organs that could adapt to any threat. All ships report ready, his communications officer announced. The Skywalkers are standing by. Admiral Han Jiho smiled. His people had been warriors for so long that they had almost forgotten how to be anything else. But the call from their dimensional cousins had awakened something in them. The chance to fight alongside other humans, to protect the innocent versions of themselves who still lived in peace. Signal the fleet, he ordered. Today we find out if our centuries of preparation were worth it. In Dimension Sigma 12, Fleetmaster Song Minji checked her ship's phase generators. Her vessels could slip between dimensions during battle, becoming impossible to hit while still being able to attack. It was a perfect strategy against enemies who didn't understand multidimensional physics. The Phantom Armada is ready, she reported to her dimensional command. We'll show these aliens what happens when they threaten any version of humanity. Back on Earth Prime, President Kim Hye-jin received reports from all 12 dimensions. Every human civilization they had contacted over the past 2 centuries was preparing to fight. Some brought weapons that could destroy stars. Others brought technology that could heal wounded soldiers instantly. Still others brought knowledge of tactics and strategies learned in wars spanning thousands of years. Madam President, Dr. Park Mira announced, all gates will be ready for activation in 18 hours. The alien fleet will arrive in 48 hours. President Kim Hye-jin nodded. What about our own fleet? Admiral Kang Daeho stepped forward. Our 500 ships are ready. But honestly, Madam President, they're just for show. The real fighting will be done by our dimensional allies. Good, President Kim Hye-jin said. I want the aliens to see our regular fleet first. I want them to think they're facing the same weak humanity they've always known. The surprise will be complete. As the hours passed, people on Earth went about their daily lives not knowing that their planet was about to become the center of the largest battle in galactic history. Children went to school. Adults went to work. Farmers tended their crops. But in secret facilities around the world, technicians made final preparations. In hidden bases throughout the solar system, weapons that had been disguised as asteroids and comets prepared to reveal themselves. And in 12 different dimensions, human fleets that had been waiting for 2 centuries began their final approach to the gates that would bring them home. The galaxy thought it was about to destroy one small, weak planet full of primitive humans. Instead, it was about to meet humanity itself, all of it, and nothing would ever be the same. The alien armada arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. 50,000 ships of every size and design spread across space in a formation that stretched from Mercury's orbit to beyond Mars. At the center flew the massive command ship of the Vorthak Empire, a vessel so large it had its own gravity field. On the bridge of that command ship, Supreme Commander Thekvar studied the primitive human fleet that had come out to meet them. 500 small ships, barely worth the name of warships. Their designs were at least a century behind current galactic standards. Their weapons looked like toys compared to the plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes carried by the alien fleet. Pathetic, Thekvar hissed through his reptilian throat. Is this really all they can field? This will be over in minutes. His tactical officer, a tall insectoid creature from the hive worlds, clicked its mandibles in agreement. Our sensors detect no hidden ships, no advanced weapons, no shields worth mentioning. The humans appear to be exactly as weak as we believed. What the aliens didn't see were the 12 points of space around Earth where reality itself was beginning to bend and twist. The shadow gates were reaching full power, creating doorways to dimensions that existed parallel to their own. On Earth, in the secret command center, Dr. Park Mira watched her instruments with growing excitement. 200 years of preparation were about to pay off. Gate 1 is at full power, reported technician Bae So-young. Connection to Dimension Alpha 7 is stable and ready. Gate 2 is ready, called another voice. The Iron Wolves are requesting permission to deploy. Gate 3 through 12 are all showing green, announced a third technician. All dimensional fleets are standing by. Commander Lee Jinho stood at the center of the command room, his eyes fixed on the main display. It showed the alien fleet approaching Earth's outer defenses. In a few minutes, they would be close enough to begin their attack. "Dr. Park," he said quietly, "initiate the Shadow Gate protocol." Dr. Park Mira's fingers moved over her control panel. "All gates, this is command. You are cleared for dimensional breach. Repeat, you are cleared for dimensional breach. Welcome to our reality." The first gate opened near Jupiter's largest moon. Space itself seemed to crack like broken glass, revealing a tunnel of swirling energy that led to somewhere else entirely. From that tunnel emerged ships that made the alien commanders gasp in shock. They were alive. The vessels of the Crimson Fleet from Dimension Alpha 7 were grown rather than built. Their hulls rippled with muscle and bone. Their weapons were organs that pulsed with deadly energy. As they emerged into Earth's dimension, they roared with voices that could be heard across the vacuum of space through some unknown method. Admiral Han Jiho's flagship, the Blood Moon, led the charge. It was the size of a small asteroid, but it moved with the grace of a hunting cat. Behind it came 5,000 more bioships, each one unique, each one adapted for a different type of warfare. "By the void," whispered the Vorthak tactical officer. "What are those things?" Before Supreme Commander Thekvar could answer, a second gate opened near Mars. This one released ships that flickered in and out of existence like ghosts. The Phantom Armada from Dimension Sigma 12 had mastered the ability to phase between dimensions during combat. Fleetmaster Song Minji's command ship, the Wraithwalker, materialized just long enough to send a message to the alien fleet. "You threatened our family. That was a mistake." Then it vanished again, only to reappear behind the alien formation's left flank. Gate after gate opened around the solar system. From Gate 3 came the Temporal Strike Force, led by Commodore Lim Dongwook. Their ships looked normal until they began to move through time itself, attacking enemy vessels in the past, present, and future simultaneously. Gate 4 released the Quantum Swarm under Admiral Bae Soyoung. These humans had learned to exist in multiple states at once. Each of their ships was actually hundreds of ships occupying the same space, only becoming solid when they chose to fire their weapons. Gate 5 brought forth the Void Dancers, humans who had learned to surf the gravitational waves between black holes. Their ships bent space around them, making distances meaningless. Gate 6 opened to reveal the Starforgers, a civilization that had learned to turn entire suns into weapons. They didn't need many ships because each one could channel the power of a star. One by one, all 12 gates discharged their fleets into Earth's reality. The aliens found themselves facing not 500 primitive human ships, but over 200,000 vessels representing 12 different paths of human evolution. The alien communications channels filled with panic. "Command. We're reading impossible energy signatures. How are they moving through solid matter?" "Sir, one of their ships just fired a weapon that travels backward through time." "This is impossible. Humans don't have this technology." Supreme Commander Thekvar tried to maintain order, but his own fear was growing. "All ships maintain formation. They're just using tricks and illusions. Focus fire on the original human fleet." The alien ships opened fire with everything they had. Plasma beams, quantum torpedoes, gravity bombs, and weapons that could crack planets all flew toward the small Earth defense fleet. Admiral Kang Daeho, aboard his flagship Defender, watched the incoming fire with calm eyes. "All ships hold position. Do not return fire. Let our friends handle this." The weapons that should have destroyed the human fleet never reached their targets. Ships from the Phantom Armada phased into existence just long enough to absorb the incoming fire, then vanished again. The Temporal Strike Force sent the alien weapons backward through time so they hit empty space instead. The Quantum Swarm spread the damage across multiple realities so that each blast hit only a shadow of their ships. But the dimensional humans didn't just defend. They attacked. Commander Yu Sun-hee led a squadron of reality-phasing fighters that struck the alien fleet from impossible angles. Her ship would disappear from one dimension and reappear inside an enemy vessel's shields, firing point-blank before vanishing again. Captain Young Min-soo commanded a bioship that evolved new weapons in real time. When the aliens adapted their shields to stop his plasma fire, his ship grew laser organs. When they blocked the lasers, it developed gravity disruptors. Every few minutes, his vessel became something new and more deadly. Admiral Kwan Haeyoung directed the temporal assault craft in a strategy that broke every rule of physics. Her ships attacked enemy vessels 5 minutes before the battle started, creating temporal paradoxes that caused alien ships to explode before they even knew why. The alien fleet, despite its massive size, began to fall apart. Ships that had been built to conquer galaxies found themselves helpless against humans who had evolved beyond the normal laws of reality. "This is insane," screamed the Zephyrite Collective's hive mind communication. "How can one species have so many different technologies?" General Oji Hoon, coordinating the defense from Earth's surface, smiled as he watched the battle unfold. "Because we're not one species," he said to his staff. "We're humanity, all of it. Every version that ever learned to survive." The Vorthak Emperor's personal communication reached Supreme Commander Thekvar. "What is your status? Why haven't you taken their homeworld yet?" Thekvar stared at his tactical display, which showed alien ships being destroyed faster than his computers could count them. "My lord, the humans, they're not what we thought they were. They have technologies we've never seen, ships that shouldn't exist. We're losing badly." "Impossible!" the Emperor roared. "They're primitives. Bring more ships." "More ships won't help," Thekvar replied quietly. "We're not fighting humans from one planet. We're fighting humans from everywhere, from places that shouldn't exist." As if to prove his point, a ship from the Starforgers materialized near his command vessel. It was small, no bigger than a fighter craft. But when it fired, the beam that emerged carried the power of an entire star. Thekvar's shields, designed to withstand planet-killing weapons, lasted exactly 3 seconds. His ship began to break apart, but before it could explode completely, a bioship from the Crimson Fleet caught it in a tractor field that felt like being grabbed by a living hand. Admiral Han Jiho's voice came over the communication system. "Surrender now, and you'll live to see your homeworld again. Keep fighting, and we'll show you what 200 years of evolution really means." Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. The alien fleet that had come to destroy humanity was being systematically dismantled by humans who had become something beyond their wildest nightmares. But the most shocking moment came when a new voice joined the communications. It was calm, female, and spoke with the authority of someone who had been waiting for this moment her whole life. "This is President Kim Hyejin of Earth. To all alien ships currently in our solar system, you came here believing us weak. You came here planning to destroy our world and our people. You were wrong on both counts." The voice paused, and in that silence, more alien ships exploded under impossible attacks. "We are not weak. We never were. We spent 200 years making you believe we were weak while we prepared for this day. While you thought we were struggling to reach the nearest star, we were building alliances across multiple realities." Another pause. More explosions. The surrender message from Supreme Commander Thekvar echoed across the communication channels. But not all of the alien fleet was ready to give up. Pride, fear, and centuries of believing themselves superior to humans drove many ship captains to continue fighting. The Zephyrite Collective's crystal ships reformed into new attack patterns. Their hive mind refused to accept that they could be defeated by what they still saw as primitive mammals. The crystalline creatures had conquered 100 worlds through pure logic and calculated violence. They would not be stopped by impossible ships that broke the laws of physics. "Analysis complete," announced Crystalline Prime, the collective consciousness that controlled all Zephyrite forces. "Human technology appears to violate established scientific principles. Conclusion: this is elaborate deception. Reality: humans remain inferior. New strategy: ignore impossible phenomena and focus on destroying their homeworld directly." 1,000 crystal ships broke away from the main battle and headed straight for Earth. Their weapons could turn the planet's atmosphere into glass and boil its oceans. If they couldn't defeat these strange human ships, they would destroy what the humans were trying to protect. But they never reached Earth. Commander Yu Sunhee had been waiting for exactly this kind of desperate move. Her squadron of reality-phasing fighters materialized directly in the path of the crystal ships. But these weren't the same vessels that had started the battle. During the fighting, they had been evolving. "Ghost Squadron, this is Commander Yu," she spoke into her helmet communicator. "Target the crystal ships. Show them what we learned from the evolved." Her fighter began to change. The metal hull flowed like liquid, reshaping itself into something that was part machine, part living organism, part pure energy. The other ships in her squadron did the same, each one becoming a unique fusion of human creativity and dimensional technology. The crystal ships fired their perfect, logical weapons at targets that should have been easy to destroy. Instead, their beams passed through ships that existed in multiple dimensions at once, while return fire struck them from angles that geometry said were impossible. Captain Jung Minsu's bioship had grown during the battle. What started as a vessel the size of a destroyer was now approaching the dimensions of a space station. Its living hull had absorbed energy from enemy weapons and used it to create new organs, new weapons, new ways of fighting. Biofleet 7, follow my lead, he transmitted to the other grown ships. Let's show them what evolution really means. His ship released clouds of smaller organisms, each one no bigger than a fighter craft but possessing intelligence and adaptability that terrified the alien crews. These living fighters could repair themselves in seconds, could adapt to any weapon used against them, and could think their way around problems faster than artificial computers. The Vorthak Empire's remaining battlecruisers tried to use their superior size and firepower to break through the human lines. Their ships were mountains of metal and energy, each one capable of reducing a city to ash with a single blast. They found themselves facing Admiral Kwan Haeyoung's Temporal Assault Force. Temporal Squadron Alpha, Admiral Kwan Haeyoung announced calmly. Initiate Chronos Attack Pattern 7. Let's teach them about cause and effect. Her ships began to move through time itself. They attacked the Vorthak vessels in the past before the battle had even started. The alien crews found themselves dealing with damage that had somehow occurred before they were attacked. Their computers couldn't understand how their armor had been breached by weapons that hadn't been fired yet. But the temporal attacks were just the beginning. Admiral Kwan Haeyoung's ships also struck in the future, hitting the aliens with weapons that wouldn't be invented for another 1,000 years. The Vorthak vessels found themselves caught in a web of temporal destruction that spanned centuries. On the bridge of the Blood Moon, Admiral Han Jiho watched the battle with the satisfaction of a predator whose hunt was going perfectly. His bioship had grown hungry during the fighting, and now it was feeding on the energy released by destroyed alien vessels. All Crimson Fleet ships, he broadcast, begin the feeding phase. Let's show them what happens to those who threaten the nest. The living ships of Dimension Alpha 7 descended on the alien fleet like a pack of wolves. But these weren't just weapons, they were creatures that had been bred for war across thousands of years. They absorbed the wreckage of destroyed ships, using the materials to grow larger and more powerful. Each bioship was unique, evolved for a specific type of combat. Some were built for speed, striking like serpents and vanishing before return fire could reach them. Others were designed as living fortresses, their hulls so thick and regenerative that they could absorb the combined fire of a dozen enemy ships while their weapon organs returned devastating attacks. The alien fleet began to understand that they weren't just losing a battle. They were being hunted by predators that had evolved specifically to destroy their kind of civilization. Fleet Master Song Minji and her Phantom Armada had been playing with the aliens like cats with mice. Her ships would appear long enough to fire a single perfectly aimed shot, then vanish into another dimension before retaliation could arrive. But now she decided it was time to end the game. Phantom Fleet, activate full phase mode, she commanded. Let's show them what ghosts can really do. Her entire armada shifted into a state where they existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They became impossible to target, impossible to hit, but still capable of striking their enemies from every direction at once. The aliens found themselves being attacked by weapons fire that seemed to come from empty space, but the most terrifying moment came when the Starforgers decided to demonstrate why their civilization had been able to survive in a galaxy full of black holes and neutron stars. Admiral Lim Sung-ho, commander of the Starforger fleet, had been holding back during the battle. His ships were too powerful, their weapons too destructive to use safely near inhabited planets. But now, with the alien fleet refusing to surrender completely, he made a decision. Starforge command to all units, he announced. Initiate stellar tap procedure. Target the alien command ships only. We don't want to accidentally melt our cousin's planet. His flagship, the Solar Wind, opened what looked like a small portal in space. On the other side of that portal was the heart of a star from his home dimension. A tiny stream of stellar fire poured through the opening, controlled and focused by technology that treated suns like fuel tanks. The beam that emerged was only a few meters wide, but it carried the power of a star. When it touched the Vorthak Emperor's personal dreadnought, the massive ship simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion, no debris. The stellar fire consumed matter and energy so completely that it left nothing behind but empty space. The remaining alien ships finally understood what they were facing. These weren't just advanced humans. These were humans who had evolved to survive in universes where the laws of physics themselves were different. They were facing creatures who treated stars as tools and time as a weapon. The communications channels filled with surrender messages. "This is Battle Group 7. We surrender. Please, we surrender. Hive mind command to all units. Cease fire. Retreat immediately. All ships, this is Admiral Kethlan. Abandon combat. Return to home ports." But President Kim Hye-jin was not done with her message to the galaxy. To all alien forces, her voice cut through the chaos of surrendering ships, you came here with 50,000 ships to destroy one world. You believed that numbers and superior technology would be enough to crush what you saw as a primitive species. Around Earth, the dimensional fleets continued their systematic destruction of any alien ship that hadn't surrendered quickly enough. You failed to understand something important about humanity. President Kim Hye-jin continued. We are not just one species on one world. We are every version of humanity that ever learned to survive. We are the species that looks at impossible odds and finds a way to win. A new group of ships emerged from Gate 12, vessels that looked like they were made of solid light. These were humans from a dimension where their entire civilization had learned to exist as pure energy, taking physical form only when they chose to. When you threatened to destroy our Earth, President Kim Hye-jin said, you threatened all Earths. When you decided to eliminate our people, you declared war on humanity itself, across every dimension where we exist. The energy beings began to merge with the bioships, creating hybrid vessels that combined living matter with pure thought. The result was ships that could adapt faster than any computer, think more creatively than any artificial intelligence, and fight with the combined experience of 12 different human civilizations. We gave you every chance to coexist, peacefully. The president's voice echoed across the battlefield where alien ships were being systematically dismantled by forces beyond their comprehension. We traded with you. We shared what little technology we claimed to have. We never threatened anyone. Admiral Kang Dae-ho, still aboard his flagship in the middle of the battle, watched his dimensional cousins work with professional admiration. Each human fleet fought differently, but they all fought with the same core characteristic. The battle was over in 6 hours. What remained of the 50,000-ship alien fleet floated in Earth's solar system like broken toys scattered by an angry child. Some ships had been completely destroyed, their atoms scattered across space by weapons that treated matter like suggestions. Others had been captured by bioships that wrapped around them like living cocoons, keeping the crews alive but helpless. A few thousand vessels had managed to surrender quickly enough to avoid destruction. Their crews sat in their disabled ships, staring at scanner readings that told them impossible things about the humans they had come to destroy. Supreme Commander Thekvar floated in a rescue pod near the wreckage of his command ship. Through the transparent aluminum window, he watched human vessels that changed shape as he looked at them, ships that existed in multiple dimensions at once, vessels that seemed to be alive and growing. This is impossible, he whispered to himself for the 100th time. This violates every law of physics we know. A gentle thump against his pod made him look up. A human ship had approached. Not one of the impossible dimensional vessels, but a simple rescue craft from Earth's original fleet. Through its window he could see a human face looking back at him. The human was smiling. On Earth, President Kim Hye-jin stood in the main communications center, surrounded by screens showing the aftermath of the battle. Admiral Kang Dae-ho was coordinating rescue operations for alien survivors. Dr. Park Mira was managing the complex process of keeping 12-dimensional gates stable while their allied fleets remained in Earth's reality, Madam. President, reported Communication Officer Lee Min-ho. We're receiving surrender messages from over 200 alien governments. Some of them are species that weren't even part of the invasion fleet. President Kim Hye-jin nodded. Word travels fast. What are they offering? Everything, Lee Min-ho replied. Trade agreements, technology exchanges, formal apologies. The Rigel Confederation is offering to make Earth the capital of their sector. The Andromeda Trade Union wants to surrender their entire fleet to us as tribute. And the species that attacked us? Admiral Kang Deho approached the president's station. The Vorthak Emperor is requesting immediate peace negotiations. The Zephyrite Collective has asked for what they call mutual non-aggression protocols. Most of the smaller species involved in the attack are begging for mercy. President Kim Hyojin looked at the main display, which showed the 12-dimensional gates still glowing in space around Earth. Through those portals, she could see glimpses of the other realities where humanity had evolved differently. Each one had its own challenges, its own triumphs, its own version of the human spirit. "Dr. Park," she said, turning to the scientist, "how long can we keep the gates open?" "As long as we want," Dr. Park Mira replied. "The technology is stable now. We could keep them open permanently if we choose to." "And our dimensional allies? What do they want to do?" Dr. Park Mira consulted her datapad. "I've been in communication with all 12-dimensional fleets. Most want to establish permanent embassies here. Some want to set up trade agreements between dimensions. A few are asking if they can relocate some of their populations to our reality." President Kim Hyojin considered this. For 200 years, humanity had lived in secret, pretending to be weak while they built bridges to other versions of themselves. Now that the secret was out, everything would change. "Send a message to all alien governments," she decided. "Tell them that President Kim Hyojin of Earth requests their presence at a galactic peace conference. Tell them we have new terms to discuss." 3 days later, representatives from over 1,000 alien civilizations gathered at Nexus Prime, the same space station where the Galactic Council had voted to destroy humanity. But now the meeting had a very different tone. The alien delegates sat in their assigned seats, many of them still trying to process what they had witnessed. Some species had sent their greatest military minds, hoping to understand how humans had hidden such incredible power. Others had brought their top scientists, desperate to learn the secrets of dimensional travel. President Kim Hyojin entered the Great Hall accompanied by representatives from all 12 human dimensions. Admiral Han Jiho of the Crimson Fleet wore a biosuit that shifted and changed color as he moved. Fleet Master Song Minji of the Phantom Armada flickered in and out of visibility, sometimes appearing as a solid person, sometimes as a translucent ghost. Admiral Kwan Haeyoung of the Temporal Strike Force seemed to exist in multiple moments at once, her image blurring as past and future versions of herself occupied the same space. The representative from the Starforgers glowed with contained stellar energy, while the delegate from the energy beings appeared as a column of living light. "Honored delegates," President Kim Hyojin began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. 3 days ago, you believed humanity was a minor species confined to one small planet. You were wrong. She gestured to her dimensional companions. We are not one species. We are 12 species, all human, all connected across the barriers between realities. For 200 years, we have been building alliances, sharing knowledge, and preparing for the day when someone would threaten any version of humanity. The alien delegates listened in silence. Many of them were still in shock from the battle reports they had received. "You came to our solar system with the largest fleet in galactic history," President Kim Hyojin continued. "You intended to destroy our world and eliminate our people. Instead, you discovered what happens when humanity decides to stop pretending to be weak." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We could have revealed ourselves centuries ago. We could have conquered your worlds, enslaved your people, and built an empire spanning multiple realities. We chose not to. We preferred peace. We hoped that the galaxy could learn to coexist without violence." The Vorthak Emperor, attending the conference via hologram since his physical presence would have been too dangerous for the other delegates, spoke first. Your technology is beyond anything we understand," he admitted. "Ships that exist in multiple dimensions. Weapons that fire through time itself. How is any of this possible?" Admiral Kwan Haeyoung answered, her voice echoing strangely as multiple versions of herself spoke in unison. "It's possible because humanity never stops growing. In every dimension where we exist, we face different challenges. We develop different solutions. When we share that knowledge across realities, we become something greater than any single species could ever be." The crystalline prime of the Zephyrite Collective processed this information through its hive mind consciousness. Query: what are your intentions toward existing galactic civilizations? Dr. Park Mira, who had been named Earth's chief science diplomat, stood to answer. "Our intentions are the same as they have always been. We want to live in peace. We want to trade, to learn, to grow. But we will never again allow ourselves to be threatened with extinction. She activated a holographic display that showed the 12-dimensional gates around Earth. These portals will remain open. Our allied fleets will maintain a presence in this reality. Not as conquerors, but as guardians. And guardians of what? Asked the representative from the Centauri Federation. Of peace, President Kim Hye-jin replied simply. The galaxy has seen what happens when major powers try to eliminate smaller ones. We will not allow it to happen again. To anyone. Commander Lee Jin-ho, now promoted to Director of Interdimensional Defense, explained the new reality. Any species that attempts to destroy another species will face the combined might of 12 human civilizations. Any government that tries to enslave or genocide its people will discover that humanity has a very long memory and very creative weapons. The alien delegates began to understand. Humanity wasn't offering to become the new rulers of the galaxy. They were offering to become its protectors. Over the following days, new agreements were signed. The Galactic Council was reformed with human representatives from each dimension, holding permanent seats. Trade routes were established between different realities, allowing for the exchange of goods and knowledge that had never been possible before. The Vorthic Empire agreed to transition from a military dictatorship to a democratic federation. The Zephyrite Collective began sharing their crystalline technology in exchange for human bioengineering knowledge. Dozens of smaller species requested human protection from larger, more aggressive neighbors. But the most significant change was in the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. Humanity had shown that a single species could evolve in infinite directions, that cooperation across realities could create power beyond imagination, and that the greatest strength sometimes came from appearing weak, until the moment when strength was truly needed. Dr. Yoon Seok-min, now 94 years old, sat in his wheelchair on Earth's surface, watching the dimensional gates through his window. The young scientist who had helped discover interdimensional travel 2 centuries ago was now witnessing the dawn of a new galactic age. Captain Nam Yoonji, the pilot who had made first contact with alternate humanity, commanded the new Interdimensional Exploration Corps. Her mission, to find more dimensions where humans existed and offer them the same alliance that had saved Earth. How many more are out there? She had asked Dr. Park Mira before her first mission.